Welcome to Good Morning Hospitality, your one-stop shop for the latest news, noteworthy trends, and thought-provoking discussions across the industry. From hotels to short-term rentals to all things travel and hospitality, you'll find each episode equips you with the information that you need to start your week. Join us on Good Morning Hospitality every Wednesday, wherever you get your podcasts. Well, good morning.
Good morning, Sarah.
Ooh, we should maybe
Man,
put the microphone.
I feel like I haven't seen you in a month.
It's been crazy. Hey, wait,
I know.
first of all, I feel like everybody's been super busy. I know you've been really busy. I know I've been bopping all over the place.
Yep.
Like, did everybody
Making
just like
deals.
turn up like the intensity on this? Like,
I think
summer's
so.
over. Let's like get it done.
I think so. Everyone's coming up. Hey, we got a quarter and a half of the year left. Let's make this happen. Let's get these deals done. So I've been a lot of fun things, which I can't share all of them, but touring boutique hotels, maybe making deals with some big companies here in Miami. Who knows?
Ooh,
anything is possible here.
Same, bro. Same.
And can I tell you something I forgot to mention behind stage?
What?
This is our 1-year anniversry of doing shows together. Did you know that?
It is. Did we start in
August 30th last year?
Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So 52 weeks of Sarah and Steve live on the air with all of you guys.
Give or take ish.
Yeah. Well, you know.
But yes, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's 1 year.
Cool.
So I love it. And look where we're at from where we started a year ago.
Where we are at. Exactly.
Who would have thought? Right?
We're 1 year older.
Who would have thought? Look at us now.
Yeah. Let us know if you guys have been joining us for most of that time, all of that time. By the way, we'll just take this moment to say a special thank you to everybody that does join us, especially live. I mean, anytime that you get to listen, always love that, but definitely to the people that join live and share the comments and all of that. It means so much. So thank you guys, really.
Yeah. And we've met so many unique people, and I've created friendships online with people just from the show. I met them in real life too. And it just feels great to be able to share all those things. So thank you to Good Morning Hospitality and the team for helping us get us together and put the show together.
I know, right? And who knew that we were also like pseudo birthday twins with all of that.
I know. The Gemini's in the house.
What? Okay. Oh wow, I was way too excited about that. Anyway, well, I know that there's quite a bit to cover here. I am down to dive in if you are.
I think so. I think our morning banter is done. Time for some news.
And scene. All right. So we had kind of talked about this before, but I think that this is really interesting just for perspective. But another article came out that was really talking about the rise of the $1,000 a night room. And it's interesting that in certain locations, $1,000 a night for a room, like a basic room. We're not talking about just a suite or some like a penthouse suite. Yes, obviously those have always existed, but prices are just going up. And again, we're looking at these standard rooms. Well, what you've got, like the Nomad in New York, for example, standard room starting at $1,300. A room at the Four Seasons Miami that in October, a weekend in October, it starts at $1,500 a night. So this is really like this is the new norm. This is crazy. That's wild, right?
It is a bit bananas because we start talking. Like you and I think we see it so often that we just get used to it. And I think a lot of people are very wealthy and doing very well, like that upper echelon, and they're willing to pay for those experiences that we've talked about. Those just the vacations that we've talked about.
Yes.
They're willing to spend.
Yeah.
But I was in a hotel yesterday. I can't say the hotel, but an ultra luxury hotel here in Miami Beach with the general manager and director of revenue and just talking about their strategy. For project we're working on, and they won't lower the room rate below $750 a night for the standard room because one, they're getting a certain amount of occupancy. It keeps that level of luxury in the eye of the beholder. Like, hey, this is a premium product, and they can drive more to the bottom line because maybe occupancy is not there in slow season, but they have a lot less labor. They can actually focus on the guests that are there and get great reviews that then ramps it way up, so they can then charge double or triple during season because the reviews
Yeah.
are so high. So it's interesting to see the different strategies at different places.
Well, and I love that you bring that up because of that. They won't go lower than that certain amount. One of the last hotels that I'd worked at, now this was obviously many years ago, their rates are a little bit different. But I remember when, they were averaging 425 a night. And then when it was slower, they might go down to like 375. But the moment they got into the 300 range, it was a different
Crowd.
of guests than when they were in the $400 range. And I just remember thinking like, wow, it might only be $75 or $100 difference, but it 100% attracted a different clientele.
Yes. I would say the less well-traveled sometimes happens, and then you have a lot more issues. It's just true. And it sometimes becomes the party crowd. We're like, all right, it's $299 and we can split it 4 ways, and we're going to come out here to Miami Beach and party and destroy the room. And I would see it all the time. So when we had the room rates much higher, yeah, you still have challenges and people do things, but it's not as bad as when you got into those summer months and you knew like, all right, let's prepare. We're going to be touching up rooms more, and also running hotels in different seasons, right? So if you keep those room rates high, you don't have those 2 different seasons where you're lowering the quality of the toilet paper and lowering the quality of the in-room amenities and lowering the quality of certain things just to keep up with that rate. So interesting to see how different hotels do different things.
Yeah. I mean, and it's again, this article is just pretty interesting because again, it's kind of talking about, this wealth effect is alive and well. I remember in 2008 when, there was certainly like a big economic crash at the time, and I was working at, I still think is the top hotel in Beverly Hills. But and it was interesting because it's like, yes, that hotel, had the 1% of the 1% that stayed there. And then shortly after that, I moved to another hotel that, let's just say I went from a 5-star hotel to a 4-star hotel for
big
just
difference.
sake of, and for sake of the conversation. The 4-star hotel did fine because all the people that would normally stay at the 5-star hotel were like, well, they still could travel. They still had enough funds, but they just like took it down a notch. So then they were all staying at the 4-star hotel. So I thought this was such an interesting thing because it's, they were kind of in this sweet spot that even in, a recession or in a time where there was like economic challenges, they were still able to stay busy because they were nice enough to appeal to those that would normally go for the 5-star. Yeah. So it was this interesting mark, but
I like this because what you're saying is in this article. So if you want to read the article, it's a Wall Street Journal article. We can maybe share it afterwards. But basically, they're saying like the prices are getting high for some people. Like some people who love staying at the Four Seasons Miami, in this article said they weren't willing to pay the $1,200, but they were willing to trade down to $600 a night at the Boca Raton, which is also a beautiful resort. So they're looking for deals to see where they think the best value is, because the final quote in this is, I'm willing to pay, but I don't want to be taken advantage of. And so what is that line for people, right? Because it's all about that value. If you still pay $1,500 and feel you're getting all the value for it, go for it.
Totally. Well, I feel like we've talked about this a lot with value. I know that like that I have certainly is that it's people will pay, but they just have to feel like they're getting it's worthwhile what they're paying for. So
yes. So see what you're adding. What are you cutting out of it? Are you adding in more services? Those are the things you have to see. So
completely.
I would like this article, but yeah, $1,000 a night. It's getting up there. Things are getting nuts.
That's crazy. All right. So moving on to our next topic here, how Choice Hotels is elevating its upscale brand offering. So this was pretty interesting just because, I think normally when we think about Choice Hotels, we're not necessarily thinking about, upscale or luxury, but they are understanding that, they're seeing that people are prioritizing more personalized service. They're looking for something that's more unique. And they're realizing that they really are needing to lean into that, or there's value in leaning into that. And so, with them, they're actually, for those that didn't know or connect the dots, they've got Radisson brands are under the Choice Hotel umbrella. So it's interesting that Radisson has been really kind of doing a refresh of their brand. And then you got Radisson, and of course Radisson Blue. But interesting to see that they are really kind of like redefining this sort of upscale market for choice hotels, which is cool.
Yeah, I think, again, talking price points, people still want all of the nice things and still want things that feel upscale, but maybe on a budget, right? So upscale on a budget. And so I think that some of these older brands like the Sheratons and the Radissons and the ones that used to really kind of lead the way can come back and find new people that way. Just like fashion, right? Like in the 1990s, you started seeing all the kids with baggy clothes and different t-shirts. I'm seeing all the teenagers wearing that now, right? So I think that we can see that in hospitality too. It's kind of like these older brands come back with a refresh and really capture new travelers that are looking for something like this.
Totally. Yeah. So it is, I mean, again, we're seeing it across the board. But are you, what, by the way, for everybody that's joining us, like, what are you seeing? Are you seeing the same thing? Or is your property leaning into that, being a little bit more discerning as far as sticking to a certain price point, certain clientele? Just all depends on your market. But
I'm gonna say good morning to Christopher for coming here from live from Maryland. We got Lonnie from sunny South Florida. Good to see you. And Lonnie says, Choice Hotels and or others thinking outside the box wins in today's highly competitive arena. I agree with you. And Christopher says Choice has been trying to enter that market for years, but with iffy results. So let's see. I think they have a chance, because I've been talking to some people. There's a unique, we'll give him a shout out because I just had a call with him. His hotel is called Bob Hotels, boutique on a budget, right? And it's in the first one's in Tallahassee, of all places. And they're testing the theory out. And good morning to Antonio.
Antonio, good morning.
They're testing the theory out, and it's working, where they're trying to get rooms under $100. But it looks like a designer hotel. And so that's their first one, and they're doing very well and looking to expand into secondary markets. And so they're looking for it, similar to Graduate Hotels kind of did. So they're kind of following a little bit along that path, but with a little bit lower entry rate, still beautiful design. So I think that hotels, if you're really looking at that, like the Choice Hotels, like Christopher was saying, has been iffy. If you can focus on giving great design, great amenities that maybe are low touch, so you don't have to staff up so heavy, because a lot of them don't want to staff up, I think you'll see people do really well.
I love that you mentioned the design aspect, because that's something that can make such a difference. I mean, it doesn't have to be overly fussed or this. I mean, it can be just simple and elevated, and it's amazing what you can do with a little.
Yeah, because there's certain hotels, I don't ever like talking bad about hotels, but there's certain hotels that are like getting very into like very colorful and big things that are not going to be lasting forever. It's going to look old, I think, very quickly. Just like when you saw like certain 2000s designs, like you can say that's a 2000. 2010.
Yeah, for
Some of these aren't going to go very well. They're not that classic design look that still could be fun and cool in these hotels.
Which is interesting. It also comes down to the artwork too that's chosen in these hotels, because you want to think about whether it's artwork or you're leaning into the design. A property I had worked at, I remember thinking it was so interesting because it was less about the artwork, but more about the design and the aesthetic. So it's like, even if you're choosing like a certain textured wallpaper, for example, that gives it something. And then you don't necessarily have to worry about the artwork that's like, ooh, that reminds me of 1996 or whatever it is. So again, there's a lot that you can play around with that makes it a little bit more evergreen or lasting. Classic.
Yeah, classic look, I think. And it could be anything. It can be funky, but it could be classic. I go back, I wish they never closed that, because I drove by yesterday. The Delano Hotel Miami Beach was one of those. And it was very cool art pieces, very cool like Instagram walls before there was ever anything like that to exist. And the white flowing curtains and all these cool things that could have gone out of style did not. They became a classic look forever. So I think a lot of these hotels can do these things with minimal effort and not just make it a boring white box with, the same artwork you find at all of their hotels. And you know what I'm talking about. We've been enough of these places that if you just put a little tweak on it. So Choice, if you need help, Sarah and I can come and walk you through what you need.
100%. Oh, by the way, we'll say a good afternoon to you, Jeremy. Jeremy, thanks for joining us.
Welcome,
Good to see
Jeremy.
you. By the way, just a quick nod to that. It's interesting. So I've been in 5 hotels. I filmed. So I filmed in 5 hotels in the past 2 days, 3 days.
Are you doing the 50 hotel and 50-day challenge, Sarah?
I feel like it. Actually, I might be in that many hotels this month. But it was interesting. And the reason why I say film is because I'm having to interact with the space in a different way, in capturing it and the aesthetic of it. And it's very interesting that it's like you go in, like even knowing that they know how to use the light of the area to their advantage. It makes such a difference and it just sets a tone. So yeah, it's cool when a location really uses the space to their advantage, especially like if you're talking about like the lobby area. So
Yes.
a lot can be done.
And Lonnie mentioned the Delano was awesome to include the cuisine. Well, Lonnie, I ran the restaurants at the Delano, so I have to say I love those restaurants, and I wish they were still around.
Oh my gosh, that was awesome. Okay, why don't we move on here? So this was great. Our friends over at Skiff, they kind of put together a little thing about talking about the best innovators in travel and hospitality. So they've kind of put together these sort of like honorable mentions, or mentions that are honorable or whatever. And it's interesting because they're kind of talking about how the shift in luxury is not necessarily like it's the traditional sense of luxury and over the top, but it's got to feel heartfelt and sincere. I feel like we've talked about this a lot. We certainly agree with that, but they're seeing these bigger brands kind of go for, it's not necessarily like gilded look and all of this, but it's like how they can still stay elevated and create these genuine connections with guests. I don't know. This was pretty interesting. Did you take a look at this?
My notes are not working right now. I'm having some technical difficulties. So give us the rundown here.
I will keep talking. Okay. Yeah. So for example, so what they we're seeing this, they're talking about how they're seeing this post surge or post luxury on consumers. So what they're looking for is realness and depth. And it's kind of like away from this mindset of like I have to have the most expensive thing on the menu.
Right.
So it's really neat. So they kind of went through and they talked about different places. Like for example, Portland's airport, their main terminal has gotten like a facelift, and they do this really cool thing that they've got like a wood roof to it, and it leads to this like
cool.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the type of stuff that they're talking about. It's not necessarily like steel, gold, this, that. It's like, how can people just add more depth and texture?
I think you know what it is too. And I don't even have the article in front of me, but from what you're saying is I feel like people are leaning into things that are more craft and hand done and thought about, and people are missing
a unique, different approach. Like
bookstores all of a sudden are taking back off because people want to feel and hold books. And so it was just after I was thinking like, I just want a bookstore and a cafe to go to here in Miami.
Yeah.
There was a handful back in the day. Now they're not coming. There's like one. But people want that experience of like, all right, there's something else. It's not just all on my screen. It's not all digital. I want to connect to something. And you're seeing that in places popping up now.
Totally.
Whether it's the nature we're talking about, or like you talk about the airport, because I saw that on the news, how it's made of, reclaimed wood and all these cool things that they're doing.
Oh, totally. Well, it's interesting. There was another article that, by the way, has nothing to do with this that I read about Starbucks, and Starbucks is like really kind of struggling now. A lot of it having to do with their app and so remember how Starbucks came and it was like supposed to be the place that you go and like you have, you get your coffee and you can hang out, and they would have magazines, whatever. Yeah. And then their app, which by the way, I've always been a fan of their app, was like all about efficiency. You'd order it ahead of time, et cetera, whatever. And now their stores they're moving away their chairs and their tables to kind of create room for when they have a rush of people that are just grabbing and going.
Yep.
And so they're kind of not necessarily struggling with their identity, but they've shifted so much, and they're like, well, how can we get back to that? And as you said, with bookstores, how do we get back to that? People are wanting to savor a little bit more in their spaces. And so, yeah, we're seeing a lot of that around.
Yeah, that's what I want. So if anyone wants to invest, I'm looking for a coffee, book, and plant store. So you get your plants, you get your books, and some coffee in a nice traditional European vibe setting. So that's what I want to
Yeah.
create. I don't have the
Yeah.
money to do it, but if you have it and you want a cool place to hang out, let me know. Sarah, you can come film some videos there.
Perfect. Thanks. Oh, Larry, what did you write here? Starbucks was the third space totally. But they've taken them away from being a community hub 100%.
Yes, it's getting rough though, because I don't know how they turn it around, because there's some that still have that feeling, but like, I took my kids into one this weekend, and I know that there's certain policies, and it's hard because it's all, again, politics, but there's a bunch of homeless guys hanging out in there. You don't feel totally safe. One guy is like screaming on the patio outside. It's like, how do you get this vibe back without, I know they got in big trouble for kicking people out of their bathrooms and things like that a year or two ago. So,
but like,
it'll be interesting to see. They got a new CEO. We'll see what he can do coming over from Chipotle, which doesn't give me a lot of hope, but let's see what he can create over there.
Yeah, no, I love that. So anyway, the rest of this article kind of goes through a couple of different things. They talked about La Premiere, for example, for Air France, how they've created this great product, not only from the on-flight product, but even their lounges that are elevated, yet it's a bit more approachable and easy to kind of like experience these elevated experiences. What's going on?
Just laughing at Larry's comment here. Pumpkin spice latte is not enough to save them, unfortunately. No,
that is
well, they do have the signs out, Larry, at every place now. Welcome to fall. Pumpkin spice everything.
That's ridiculous. Yeah, people love that.
Yeah, people are selling their Halloween decor. My kids want to put it up now. I was like, no, we're not. We need to get to the month first.
Wait, hold on. So real talk. Do you like pumpkin spice latte flavors, or like
pumpkin spice? My favorite pie is pumpkin pie. I could eat a pumpkin pie all day long, but I don't want it in every single thing. I'll have one, but I'm not going to drink it every day. I don't think that's my thing.
It's so funny. It's never been my thing. I'm just like, I don't get it. Like, I mean, it's fine, but yeah. Anyway, so wow, lots to talk about there. Let's go ahead and start talking about travel, because we've got some cool.
Were we on a tangent? We went on a tangent here.
We did go on a tangent.
Thanks for following along. And Lonnie's Worth Avenue, Palm Beach. That still has a vibe. That's the fancy vibe in Palm Beach.
They tried to keep that vibe with their reserves, and I know that there were a couple. I remember there were two in LA that weren't too far away from me, and then they had to close those down, and it's like, it's crazy.
It's hard. It's hard.
Yeah.
Let us know your favorite coffee shops. We'll give them some shout outs here. Let's keep
us know
local coffee shops going.
Looks like Starbucks is a hot topic, and it wasn't even a topic on here.
Well, when you leave Worth Avenue Starbucks, head over to the Colony Hotel's coffee shop right off of Worth Avenue.
There you go.
Great coffee shop at the Colony.
There you go. Okay, so interesting. This article talked about the latest European country to take steps to curb tourism, and it's the Czech Republic. So basically, the Czech Republic is wanting to kind of, it says cut down, but I don't know if it means cut down per se, but basically limiting the amount of and availability of accommodations. And they've actually seen a couple of other, places have done that. And one of the reasons why is they've been getting a lot of pushback from local residents who've seen rents and housing costs just rise. So interesting to see that this is kind of happening throughout Europe. I don't know. Yeah, no, it is everywhere.
We're starting to see this every country.
Yeah.
So let me just say this, because I've been putting this together here, and I saw this, and I was like, man, first, you want travelers coming to your country because they're supporting hundreds of other small businesses in your communities. And I get maybe there's a way to curb it, like we talked about Venice, that has like a tax that comes in and use that tax to help fund the city. I think that's really creative.
Yeah.
But when Barcelona's water gun squirting tourists, and it turns out some of them aren't tourists, they actually live there, but they don't look like people who live in Barcelona. This is when you start having problems. And another thing's happening in the United States. So I was watching my favorite CBS Sunday morning show.
Okay.
And in Juneau, Alaska, they're getting really upset with the cruise ships, because the cruise ships have now come in, bring all these tourists, ruin their way of life that they moved up to Alaska for. So that's like one side of it. But then the other side of that coin is the people who run the business. Like, no, we love the cruise ships coming. It brings in hundreds of millions of dollars into our tiny town. And if they don't come, we couldn't offer all of these things to the people who live here year round. So
this is true.
And then my final one on this is putting it all together is in New York City. They banned all the Airbnbs, thinking, all right, that was going to solve the issue.
Yes.
It's been a year. It has not solved the issues. Rents continue to go higher. All of the room rates, like we talked about, are thousands of dollars and at record highs in New York. So we are not politicians or, economists, but I'm telling you, there's something else happening here, and you don't want to push people away from visiting you. You want to be hospitable. Yeah. Maybe we can figure out different ways of doing this.
No, you totally do. There was another article that I was going to put in here, but New Zealand is, I think they're increasing their visitation fee. I forget what it was. I forget what the actual label of it, but it's basically like going to be $62 or something like that to come visit New Zealand. And they've been getting a lot of interesting pushback because they're like, no, we don't want to deter people, because truthfully, since the pandemic, they haven't seen quite the surge back of travelers as they had before. So they want to welcome people, but they're also, for anybody that's been to New Zealand, it's a small country, small island. And they're trying to protect and keep the integrity of it as well. If I'm thinking about the people that are going to someplace like that, wouldn't deter me from going to New Zealand. That's just the cost to visit. Is that higher than other places? Sure. We're seeing people push back on $5.
62, but I just think it's a good way to do it, right? So if you're willing to still pay and go, and you can use those funds to help the community, great way. And I like that. Thank you, Christopher, for working for us behind the scenes and posting the link to the article that we talked about earlier.
Totally. And thank you to Larry, who was talking about the great example of Air France, their pop-up lounge concept at the Olympics with a big success. Yeah, I think they've done a really good job with that. So again, there are so many different ways that people can create an elevated a product that still connects with people in a different way. So yeah, that was kind of cool. Okay, wait, this last topic here, because I want to be mindful of the time. This is so interesting. And I actually chose this article because of you, Steve.
Okay. I like it.
Because it was talking about you can fly business class with your kids in economy. Here's how to make it work. So this comes up because, Steve and I, we were talking about traveling next year, and you were talking about the cost of flights. Yes. I'm not saying that you would necessarily do this, but I thought this was an interesting just article about people just traveling with kids. And obviously some people want to stay together, but maybe at a certain point they want to sit in different classes. And so did you get a chance to take a look at this?
I did. And I was laughing.
Were you really? Why?
Well, one, I think if they're tween teenager, then they're going to want to have their own space, and they wouldn't mind being back there. My kids are a little young still.
No, for sure.
But I like it. It reminds me of that in Home Alone, right? Where the parents are up front in first class and the kids are in back. And he's like, I never got to travel in first class when I was a kid. So they get to hang back there too. But I like this. I think it's a good strategy for certain people. I like having my unit together at this point, but I know when I was a teenager, 13, I'm going to get my CD Walkman headphones and head on back. I can do it myself. I don't need your help, parents.
Well, what I liked about it.
Tell me what do you like about it?
What I liked about it, and truthfully, I don't have kids, but You've been
around a lot of kids. Yes.
I have been around a lot of kids, but I've been traveling since I was 3 weeks old. And I did my first solo flight at 7 years old. And it was international from Newark to Portugal to Lisbon. And then many other solo flights after that. Granted, we're living in a different time than then, but, and again, every child and family dynamic is different, but I liked this element of depending on the child and the age and all of that, giving them this sense of autonomy that they can almost feel what it's like to travel solo.
Yeah. I like that.
And it's giving them training wheels so that they're not now all of a sudden 18, 19 and they've never traveled by themselves, which that's fine too. But I think it's an interesting way if your kid can behave themselves and all of that, but to kind of give them this sense of like that they're doing something on their own. I don't know. I like that.
I love
So
it. I've been trying. It's funny because this weekend was like that with my daughter and my son. Their daughter's 8, son is 6. 6-year-old. We sent them both to the bathroom. She came out. He's screaming in the bathroom and throwing toilet paper. Right. So it's very funny to see.
oh my
Same
gosh.
kids, same parents, same way they've been raised, but two
Yeah.
totally different
Oh,
personalities.
yeah.
Love them both.
Personality plays a lot into it,
But my
obviously.
daughter, I think, would be able to do it at 8 years old. Be like, all right, you're gonna go sit in the seat. You do your thing. We'll see you in a little bit. And she's getting to that age now, 3rd grade, right? So she's figuring those things out. My
Yeah.
son, I'd be worried back there. It's like a little gremlin. Someone might pour water on him, and he turns into a crazy guy back there.
Well, I don't think that's necessarily the area to maybe test it out, but I do like this concept of like in a different places, safe spaces, having your even you can keep an eye on them to be like, okay, what are they like when they're in an environment around all other adults to see how much they can just
Food halls are a good place that we test that. Go order your food. Yeah, go order your food. Here's here, go pay for it. See how it comes.
Cool.
So we tested that so we could watch them. It's fun.
Yeah.
Order your own food, buy from the server. But yeah, I like this. And I think it's a unique way to get people to travel more. But my kids love it now. They love traveling and they always asking, when can we go somewhere next?
Oh, that's cute. See, it's good. It's good. Anyway, I thought it was an interesting article. I know that everybody has like so many strong feelings when it comes to traveling with kids, whether they have kids and they're traveling with them, whether they don't have kids, and then they're, all of that. But it's always interesting to hear what people are doing. And I thought it was cool. It's kind of interesting.
I got wisdom from Lonnie here. Let me see, Lonnie.
Oh,
I have 5 kids and 6 grandkids, and wow, each one has their own shtick.
Yeah.
I'm learning that as I go here, Lonnie. It's going to be interesting to see as it continues to go, but love traveling with them.
So true. So true. All right. Being mindful of the time, let's head on to our real-time recap. So talk to me. What have you seen out there in the streets of hospitality?
What have I seen? I've been in a lot of places this past week.
Sure.
And it's funny. I've been leaning on this. I've been in a lot of boutique hotels recently. And I just like some of them that are doing things. Again, we talked about this craft and going back to like really caring and feeling personalized service. I'm leaning a lot towards that recently. I was always like a big resort guy, and I want all the stuff on the resort, and I want to have a lot of amenities and different activities. But for some reason, something's switching in me recently, and I'm liking the personalized service you get at some of these places that do it right. Because you could walk into a place and feel like no one's watching you because they're understaffed, but I've seen that at a couple of boutique hotels where it's like, wow, they knew I was coming. They talked to me. They knew what I liked. Or they asked how they could help me. I learned something new here. So I'm liking that when I'm walking the streets right now.
Yeah, when you're walking in the streets. I love that you bring that up because I've always been a fan of that sort of like boutique, unique experience. I like it when they tap into the local just the local environment. So for example, last week, we actually couldn't do the show. I was in Vancouver, doing a bunch of TV appearances up there. And so right in this hour. And, I was staying at the Douglas Hotel, which is an autograph collection property. And it was very interesting. They've got a cool thing going on, and they're right there, like in the same complex as a JW Marriott. There's another property, but it was just, I like it when they have fun with the location. And so they like, oh, you get to have some kombucha upon check-in. It was so funny because I'm like, I'm not a kombucha person, but I was like, I will play along. And I got to try kombucha I actually like. I was like, I was like, oh, this is bad. To me, it just tastes like fruity beer, and it's just not my thing. But this was very tasty kombucha, and it was locally sourced and all that. I'm like, okay, all right, this is kind of cool. So yeah, no, I'm very much into that. I will say this, in all the hotels that I have been in recent, I will actually name them. I'm going to give a shout out to everybody has been so welcoming and kind in a different way, because I've had to film in all of these places, and everybody's kind of been gone out of their way to be extra helpful. So the Douglas in Vancouver, which was great. Love them. Autograph collection property. The Cameo in Beverly Hills. Shout out to them. They let us basically turn the whole place into like a whole photo shoot. That used to be Mr. C's Hotel. This is a recent rebrand, and they're part of Hilton. So shout out to the Cameo in Beverly Hills. Awesome job. Then I was at the Kimpton Lapeer Hotel yesterday, the Mondrian Hotel, my old stomping grounds, the London West Hollywood. I showed up unannounced and they let me do a whole thing there. Love them for that. And then also the Pendry Hotel in West Hollywood. Amazing what they've done. So all of these very interesting boutique,
all different style. Yep.
All different styles, but like everybody was warm, welcoming. And so shout out to everybody there. Like they didn't necessarily have to be. I mean, obviously we're trying to be mindful when we're doing that, but it's been very cool seeing everybody. So
love it. So shout out to all the unique hotels out there.
Yes. Woo, that's almost 50 hotels.
Yeah, a day.
No, crazy. All right, let's get to our hospitality quote. All right. Will, you want to read the quote? I'm kidding. It Will in the back read it incorrectly earlier, which is kind of funny. Do you want to read the quote though?
Absolutely. Consumers are statistics. Customers are people. And that's by Stanley Marcus.
I like this. I thought that's again, it's an interesting thing to, I mean, obviously there's an element of what we do that there's a business. So we have to have numbers. And yes, Vancouver. By the way, Lonnie, I love that you said that. I would move to Vancouver in a heartbeat. So I'm just saying, love that city. Anyway,
but yes, right now I would say it's budget time. And so a lot of people are making their budgets. Almost every hotel is doing that right now. And you get caught up in line by line of the ADR and the average check and the average spend and all the statistics that are out there. Right. And you look at the labor line and you forget that people are attached to that labor line as well. And you start making cuts or changes. So all those numbers actually are real people with real lives. And just remember that. That's what I took from that quote. Right. Because not even customers. Right. It's just whenever you're doing that now, people, because I know thousands of you out there are making your budgets. It's all attached to real things. So when you cut somewhere of a service, you're affecting that guest. You cut a job, you're changing someone's life. So just remember, those numbers actually equal people on both sides of the coin here.
So true. Love that. Christopher also agrees with that. We can never lose. Yeah, we can never lose the human nature of hospitality. We are in a human business where it's the feeling business, and there's tangible elements to it as well, but it's how you're making people feel. And if you're so focused on numbers and the bottom line, you lose track of that a bit. So you have to figure out that fine balance between the two.
You got to make money. Yeah.
You got to make money. Exactly.
You can do it the right way.
For sure. Woo. Well, we covered a lot today.
I covered a lot. I can't believe 1 year, Sarah. You and I, 1 year. We made it.
1 year. This is amazing. So very cool.
We'll celebrate with some kombucha after the show.
Can't wait.
All right. We'll see you next week, everybody.
All right. See you guys soon.